Hi everyone, it's Mrs. Z. And if you're watching this video, you are most likely ready to take your Nonfiction Planning Web and turn it into your very first chapter. And I am here to help you do that. Now, whenever we're writing a chapter, we always know that we have to start with a really strong introduction or a hook. A hook is what gets the reader's attention and makes them want to keep reading our story. On this chart, you'll see 3 different ways to have a really strong hook or introduction. The first way is to start with a sound word, like boom. The second way is to ask the reader a question. And the third way to have a really great hook is to give an interesting or surprising fact. I'm looking at this and thinking, how can I hook the reader whenever they're reading my first chapter on frogs? I know. I am going to ask the reader a question. On the next slide, you'll see the chapter, and this is exactly what yours looks like. Chapter 1 is called All About Frogs. So make sure your Nonfiction Planning Web is the one that has the topic frogs in the center. Now, I thought long and hard about my introduction. Remember, I'm asking the reader a question about the topic. I said, do you want to learn more about frogs? I can teach you. Hopefully, when the reader reads this, they say, yeah, I do want to learn more about frogs, so I'm going to keep on reading. Now it's time to start taking those facts that we gathered from the different books and videos that we have watched and put them into a chapter. The first fact that I'm going to include in my chapter is can leap with long, strong back legs. I highlighted it there in yellow. Notice that my fact is a phrase. That means it is not a complete sentence. Whenever we write in our chapters, we have to make sure that we turn our phrases into complete sentences. Now you'll see that I wrote my first factual sentence in my story. It says, frogs have strong legs to help leap far distances. I turned that into a complete sentence by adding a little bit more to it. I also started with a capital letter and I ended with punctuation. Notice that when I wrote this, I started on the very left side of the paper and I wrote as much as I could on that line without squishing my words together. Now I included my first fact. Let's move to the second. The next fact that I chose is actually the one below that, the one in yellow. Live in wet places. Is that a complete sentence? No way. We have to make sure when I write it into my story, I turn it into a complete sentence. I started with a transition phrase. Another fact about frogs is they live in wet places, like mud puddles and creeks. I tried to make my sentence a little bit better by adding places where frogs live, and not just saying that they live in wet places. I added mud puddles and creeks. Does that mean frogs only live in mud puddles and creeks? Definitely not. I just wanted to include a few places in my sentence. Now I'm moving on to fact number 3. Can see, smell, and breathe underwater. I'm putting that fact next because the fact right before it was about the places they live, which is near or in the water. The sentence I wrote says, since they spend a lot of time in water, frogs can see, smell, and breathe under the water. Finally, we're ready to move to our last fact. Avoid predators by blending in with their habitat. On this page, I included a transition word. Look for my transition word and point to it when you see it. If you're pointing at the word finally, you are fantastic. I started my last factual sentence with the transition word finally. I wrote, finally, frogs blend in with their habitat to hide from predators. This helps frogs stay safe. Now, I decided to turn that into 2 sentences. If I put those 2 sentences together in just one sentence, it would be really, really long. So I decided to separate them. But notice, when I did separate those 2 sentences, they both started with a capital letter and they both ended with punctuation. Now, great job, everyone. We are done writing our introduction and all 4 of our facts. Now, there's only one part left to write, and that is a conclusion. Can you say conclusion? Great job. That's a big word. Let's clap the word conclusion. Conclusion. Wow. Who remembers what a conclusion is? Great. A conclusion is the end of our writing. It's like if we had a cheeseburger. The bun on the bottom that holds the whole cheeseburger together is like the conclusion. Do we need to have a bottom bun on a cheeseburger? Yes, we absolutely do. So all of our writings have to have a conclusion. This page will show you 3 ways that we can have a great conclusion. One way is to share your opinion about the topic. Another way is to tell the reader what to do with the information. And a third way is to tell one last interesting or surprising fact. It took me a while to think of what I want to do, and you can do whatever you want for your conclusion. I chose to share my opinion about the topic. I wrote, I hope I taught you a few new and interesting frog facts. Because that's the way I feel. That's my opinion. I hope I taught you, the reader, a few new and interesting frog facts. Now, everyone, we are done writing our first chapter on frogs. Woo, woo, do the happy dance. Pat yourself in the back. Great work. Now, there's just one final thing to do on our chapter, and I think it's mostly everyone's favorite part. We get to draw a picture. Now, whenever we draw pictures in our informational books, remember this is nonfiction, which means it's real. So whenever you draw your pictures, you can do a diagram. That would be fantastic. We always work on the ABCDs of scientific drawing, and you can use those on these pictures. Now remember to do your best. The A in the ABCDs of scientific drawing is accurate, meaning it looks like the real thing. B stands for big, so don't draw a teeny tiny little frog, but don't draw one so big that it takes up the whole page. Draw one large enough that the reader can see what you drew. The C stands for colorful. Remember, we always say to try and have 4 colors or more in your picture. And the D stands for detailed. My picture doesn't include labels, but yours absolutely can. I can't wait to see your chapters on frogs and toads, little eagles. You will do great.